Hello, and welcome back into our Perfection series. We are into our fourth week, and thus our final week of spring. And so we'll jump into our spring goals again, as usual, just to kind of refresh what we're doing and what our goals are, and go from there. We only had a few major things we needed to accomplish, one of which is level 10 farming. That's the one that's kind of left over. Minecarts we're done with, vault we're done with, sprinklers will be coming up very soon. Barn and coop are both very important, but the over 1 million earned is kind of more of a stretch goal to make money easier, and I'm not really sure if we'll make that happen yet, but if we don't, it's less of a big deal than the others. If we don't reach level 10 farming, the run will be over, and so that's kind of the only one that really matters at this point. So that means that as far as our weekly goals go, that is on the top of our list. And after that, we're looking to have around $250,000 to $300,000 to buy all of our starfruit seeds. And we need those by like the 2nd or 3rd of summer, maybe 4th, I can't remember. And we also want to expand our farm this week for more starfruit. We have to go to the flower festival for our relationship, as well as recipes and a scarecrow. And we should hopefully unlock the sewers to start with Krobus. We also have to get all of our animals and plant our cover crop so we don't have to do a bunch of tilling in the early months of summer. And that will get actually a little bit complicated just because of how we're doing summer, but we won't really talk about that until next time. And as for now, we had a good luck day, so we went into the Skull Caverns. We did a very small harvest in the beginning, but everything counts for XP right now. And we also did crab pots to get some snails for Vincent, as well as the fish you have to catch via crab pots. And our main focus today is less on iridium, even though we really need iridium, and it's more on getting batteries. We really have to make sure we're going to have enough batteries to get us to Ginger Island on time. And we'll also want to be able to make a lot of iridium sprinklers, which require batteries, and potentially crystallariums, depending on how I decide to do that. I'm not really sure what my strategy is going to be yet when it comes to crystallariums. I know they're very valuable, but that doesn't mean I will do a whole lot with them. It's always low on my priority list for some reason, even though, having mass-produced jade will make your farming a lot better in the mines. So we'll see what I do. I know what I should do, but it doesn't mean I will. So anyway, we had a pretty decent day as far as batteries went. It was a little bit low for iridium. We didn't quite crack 400, or we're going to crack it just barely. But I was happy with the batteries, so I kept the run. And I didn't want to go too crazy with restarts to start the week out. And that's pretty much it. As usual, I'm doing my obnoxious pausing constantly thing, which will pretty much continue all the time. It's just more efficient for waiting for stuff to magnetize to you, and you don't lose the time when you go down ladders. So I know it's not the best thing to watch, but unfortunately it has to be done. We also managed level 9 fishing because of the crab pots, which is cool. And then we also got acrobat, which will later on allow us to get a hammer and use our special attack faster. And by later on, I think I mean today. We don't have good luck, so it will be a good time to do some other random chores. So we'll be doing a lot of smelting for sprinklers, which is gold, iron, and refined quartz. We need to farm a lot more coal. We can upgrade our pick just because we have the time. And also gift people, try and farm out the dwarf scrolls, and get the new special order board quest. And like I said, the hammer, now that we have acrobat. So last video I got some great constructive criticism that I kind of glossed over the special order board. And so I wanted to touch on that real quick as I do my boring elevator farming. So last week I grabbed Pierre's Prime Produce, which was one of the quests available to me. The other one was like the other generic crop order quest. And I picked Pierre's Prime just because it's a little bit easier for what I do. It doesn't require you to do a specific crop, and I can use all the kale I'll be harvesting to complete it. And I believe it's not repeatable, so it won't clog up the recipes later. And I explained that in a comment, but I figure I should probably talk about it now as well. And I'll also slow down some of the footage for those bigger decisions that actually impact the run. I think it just got kind of lost amongst all the gifting, which I try to speed through as much as possible. And so once we pick the new task, I'll go into a little more depth about why I choose what I choose, and just kind of like what's better and why it's better. But there's our hammer. It's expensive, but it will ultimately be worth it. It looks like we have one dwarf scroll we needed, and so we're in good shape. I think we only needed the one. If not, we just need one more, which we should be able to get today if we have the time. Upgrading to a gold pickaxe isn't entirely necessary, but it will make breaking the rocks a little bit nicer in the skull caverns. So that's why I did it. And so here's the board today is Robin's project and Gus's famous omelet. Robin's project doesn't give you anything but a bed, but it is not repeatable, so that's why I chose it. Gus's omelet one is repeatable, and it only gives you a little mini fridge, which I don't really need. It would be convenient, but it's not important, basically. And so I'll work to get the hardwood for Robin's quest alongside the Pierre's quest and try and knock them both out at the end of the week. The basic thinking is, if the quest does not yield a recipe, it's not good, but if it's not repeatable, it narrows down the amount of options for next week's quest, and thus making the odds better for getting a recipe quest. So that's what I did. And the rest of the day is pretty relaxed. It's just a lot of gifting and just dashing around, giving people mostly prismatic shards. And I don't know why I checked that. It doesn't really matter what my current progress is, because I will knock it out of the park in the end of the month when I have tons and tons of kale to give Pierre. Just as a refresher for what we're doing right now and what our strategy is we have like 700 and some kale crops that should be ready by the end of the month. And we'll scythe all those down, get our level 10 farming to unlock iridium sprinklers and kegs, and agriculturalist, as well as complete Pierre's Prime Produce. The reason we are striving for agriculturist early is so that we can get 3 harvests of starfruit in summertime, while also planting our starfruit a little later than we normally would. Normally you do not have to get agriculturalist in spring, but we have to delay our starfruit planting because of a crop fairy that will exist on this seed on the 2nd or 3rd of the month. I can't remember which, but it delays our starfruit planting. And yeah, I got my final dwarf scroll, and yeah, that's it. So for today we have the flower festival, and we also have another small harvest of some kale. We can't really replant any, but we could replant any kind of like 4-day crops if we wanted. We're also going to reset floor 1 of the skull caverns over and over and over again to try to farm out some quartz. And we just really need fire quartz for the refined quartz for sprinklers. And we also built a couple tappers and are just cleaning things up just a tiny bit so our farm is a bit more manageable. The Flower Festival is not my favorite festival, to say the least. It features the unskippable dance, and usually I ignore relationships a lot, so you don't have anybody to dance with. But in today's case, we have enough hearts with Haley, so we will choose her to take to the dance. And then, if you'll notice, I monster musked up, which is kind of a waste. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I put on the monster musk as well as the savage ring. So if I do see enemies, I can kill them, get a speed boost, run around a little bit faster to fully explore, and see if there's any like bins I want to explode, or not bins, crates I want to destroy. And that'll kind of speed up my level 1 quartz and crate farming. And it's the same as I usually do when I reset mine floors, is I just go down the ladder, pause, and if nothing's there, I just go back up and do it over and over again. And that's kind of the jam. And after this is all said and done, we'll hit the Flower Festival. The other 2 things I need at the Flower Festival, aside from relationship, is the Scarecrow, or Rarecrow, and the recipe for the flower... Ooh, what is it called? Flower barrel, maybe? Whatever that is. And that's the recipe that requires 2 seeds from spring and 2 seeds from summer to craft. And then I didn't really get that much quartz, so I do kind of... In retrospect, I think I wasted my time today. In a lot of ways. I got a little bit of cloth, which I guess is worth some money, but I could have just farmed the later mine floors and probably had some better results. But alas, we didn't, and, you know, we're alright. Also, don't really worry too much about the fact that the kale is not watered today. Even if we don't water for today, we should still have enough time for it to mature. I think it only needs 1 more day of watering before I can scythe it all down. So I know it looks bad, but it's not. So anyway, I skipped the Flower Festival because it's not interesting. And ideally, the last few crops that I harvested today give me farming 6 if I don't already have it. And that way I can get those sprinklers planted so I don't have to water a ton of crops in the next couple days. And then we just put a couple more tappers out. We'll need so many kegs that I need to get tappers up as much as possible. It's a pretty big priority right now. And it'll really bite me later on if I don't do it. And yeah, we got level 6, which is nice. So that means today we'll be doing our sprinkler set down, I guess. Our sprinkler, what do you call it? Placing, I suppose. And we also have to get our pickaxe. Oh, that's why I went to the caverns, because I didn't have a pickaxe. Anyway, we're also going to pick up a full stack of deluxe speed grow, because it's Thursday, and a rock candy. We should also pick up a full stack of parsnips, at least in the next couple of days, for our cover crop. And then we're supposed to buy all of our spring safety seeds today, but I actually didn't do it. I ran out of time or money or inventory space and neglected to do it. And then we also have to get more iron and coal and our coop and farm animals. Now we are getting this goat too late, basically. So we'll have to do the animation cancel milking exploit to get him happy enough, or yeah, her happy enough to produce a large milk in time. And what that will be is basically animation canceling the milking animation to build up the hearts, in order for it to be happy enough to produce a large milk. It's the closest I'll get to an exploit in this run, and it's the only one I'll be using, but it's just because I missed my goat window. I went over a friendship very briefly back there, so you may have to go back if you wanted to look at it. I don't have any like overwhelmingly good friendship yet, but I'm getting like a pretty steady amount of hearts with all the people that had spring birthdays, so our friendship isn't looking too bad. It'll become a much bigger focus next month when money is when money and farm setup is less of a problem, and so I'll probably talk more about it then, but I wanted to kind of give a really short glimpse that you can pause on to see like where the friendship is at. And yeah, so there's one of each animal. We'll need that for truffles, for goat milk, and what else? I guess like everything, right? Because we have to ship it all, so yeah. And then we're going to Robin's to build a coop, because we need to start getting a duck, because we will need a duck feather. And we'll never buy a rabbit. We'll probably buy some chickens at some point. And maybe... No, that's it. Because we need one of each chicken to sell all the eggs. And so there's all our DSG. We don't need 1,000. But usually I just buy 1,000. Just because eventually we'll need it on the island. And for other random crops we'll need it. But right now we only need like 700 or something like that. 750 maybe? 800? I can't remember the exact amount. But we'll need that for the starfruit crop next season. We will not be planting it now. And so yeah, our tree farm is doing okay at the desert. We got our magic rock candy, which I don't have space for. And we'll just keep rolling. Space ended up being like a huge enemy of mine today. I needed to go to the museum and I kind of routed it out a little goofy. And so it ended up kind of biting me a little bit. But it ended up working out. Like I'm throwing away stuff just to get items, which you never really want to do. Especially if you're like specifically routing out a day. And this donation today was purely to get the dwarf unlocked, because we need to start building our relationship with him, and we also need to start building our relationship with Krobus. They are two of the easier people to get a relationship with, just because they're always open and their gifts are pretty easy. But the earlier I can start, the better. And so I grabbed that quest right there, as you saw. It was give Pierre a ruby. But in my initial routing of this day, the quest said give Pierre a gold bar. So that's what I thought it was going to be, but for some reason there's some kind of RNG in those boards that can change the item on every reset. So that was a little bit annoying. And so I'm buying, for the parsnip seeds, I'm buying 1,000 of them so that I can plant them all where the kale is. And they're basically a sacrificial plant to preserve the hoeing and watering of all the tiles. And I'm also buying extra so that on Ginger Island I can plant a ton to harvest quickly to get all the golden walnuts from the harvesting portion of Ginger Island. So that's kind of the strategy there. You don't necessarily have to buy a cover crop like that or a sacrificial crop, but it just makes it so I don't have to, re-hoe and re-water everything in early summer, and saves a lot of time. And yeah, so the rest of the day I just farmed iron and copper. I don't really know the most efficient way to harvest or to farm iron. But I figure I might as well just dive down the mines with a musk on so I can kill the little coal sprites and harvest simultaneously. And it's mostly just because we need a couple more iron bars for explosives ammo, as well as the sprinklers. And so I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but that is how I did it. And then we'll try to expand our farm to the left a little bit more at some point this week, if luck allows. And then real quick right there, I am putting winter roots into that seed maker so I can have winter seeds growing once we unlock the greenhouse. So yeah, there's so many little things I'm doing. It's kind of hard to cover it all because like you kind of have to know a little bit of a background of what some of the strategies are sometimes, and I forget that not everybody knows that. So if you have questions, always feel free to ask, and I'm happy to answer. And yeah, so today's Pierre's birthday. We're going to actually buy those safety seeds today, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then we're going to farm iron and coal. And this is a wasted day, in my opinion. I didn't do it good. But so real quick, the safety seeds. I am like 90% sure I have everything I need from spring. But I wanted to buy a little bit of everything in the event that I had forgotten something. And so I don't want to have to realize I forgot one parsnip or something crazy like that later down the line and fail the run, even though I'll eventually have Pierre's missing stock list. And that's just what I mean by safety seeds. And I'll do that every season, even though I know I don't have to do it. It's just for peace of mind more than anything. And yeah, and so the reason I said this day was kind of a waste is I didn't get a ton of stuff done. I didn't spend as much time as I should have mining resources or, I don't know, a lot of things. I was in the museum running back and forth all day, donating and cracking geodes. I gifted relatively inefficiently. There's just a lot of stuff in the day that, I wish I didn't do. But I ended up having to keep this day because of the pomegranate. And that doesn't make sense when I say it like that, but I'll explain quickly, I guess, how the farm cave works or how I understand it. There's a few random elements to the farm cave that spawn items in it, and one of those elements that contribute to it is step counting. So, depending on how many steps you take, it changes what could potentially spawn in the cave. And depending on how many machines you have processing items, and there's a lot of weird stuff that goes into it. But essentially you can manipulate it with steps if you want to. In my case today, I didn't try to step count, but whatever the amount of steps I took and whatever random combination I did gave me a pomegranate tomorrow in the cave. And so I didn't want to mess around and restart this day again and not get a pomegranate, because that particular fruit is very important to completing the community center on time. So basically what I'm saying is I couldn't reset this day because of a pomegranate and RNG. So I kind of lost a day but gained something much more important. And I don't know, losing one day I guess is not too bad. It's less than 1% of the run. And it's not like we didn't do anything. We just had a lot of this particular scene where I'm crafting furnaces to bring to the mines so I can start processing the iron as I go. And it just wasn't a good use of time because I did it too late in the day. I'll only be able to process 6 bars of iron before I have to go back to the farm. And it just wasn't very well thought out. And yeah, I edited that really weird so it looked messed up, but basically I ended up destroying the furnaces at the end of the day to take them home. So, just a bad day. But there's the pomegranate, and we got really good luck, which is also a result of random steps. So we're headed to this, oh my gosh, I can't talk. We're headed to the Skull Caverns, and we need a lot of money today. So we're going for a 500 plus day of iridium, ideally. And then we're going to organize some chests because we're getting a little sloppy, and sell some odds and ends just so we can get a little bit more completion done as far as the shipping tab goes. I'll focus on that a lot more once we're deeper into the run, because right now it kind of doesn't matter what we ship. We've already shipped like a morel mushroom, which is among the most important things in spring to ship because they're not available anywhere else. And that's it. I don't know, we're just diving in the caves. I skipped ahead pretty aggressively to 11:30, and we're almost out of explosive ammo, but we are over 600 iridium, and so we're sitting in a pretty good spot. We also have tons of iron and coal. Or not coal, I'm sorry, but copper. The skull caverns are not a very good source of coal. Like, you can farm a ton of iridium, obviously, iron and copper, but coal, just like, I average maybe 50 to 80 coal per run, which isn't terrible, but, you know, for 500 bars, that's 100 coal right there. Or 500 iridium, sorry. That's 100 bars, so 100 coal. And it's just not enough to keep up. But yeah, it was a good run. It only took like 20 resets to get the run I wanted. Which sounds like a lot. I mean, 20 resets of a 20-minute day. And you do the math, it's a pretty depressing amount of time. But, you know, not every day was a full day played before resetting. Some of the days were like, you know, scouting out the cave, that was a day, and I reset. And, you know, some days where you only get to like floor 20 by 10 a.m. and it's like, well, this day's obviously dead. Like stuff like that. And, so yeah, that's where we're at. I don't know, there's nothing really else to say about the skull caverns. We need more furnaces still, and we'll probably build those pretty soon now that we don't need to worry about building as many sprinklers. And I'm just going to show like a tiny bit of sped up chest management. Oh, I lied. We made furnaces right now. I'm going to show a little bit of chest management just so you can kind of like, if you choose to, pause and see like what my chests are like. I don't think it's super interesting to necessarily like spend 10 minutes talking about my chests and my organization, but it might be nice to be able to pause and be like, okay, he has like this supply of this, you know, and if you have questions as to why I'm keeping certain things, I'm happy to answer. Like the different algae, I keep those for cooking. That's the long and short of it. I'm keeping way too much, but I'm keeping it for cooking, and I'm keeping the green for a fish pond later on. You know, like there's an easy answer for just about all of it. And yeah, any questions you have, like I said, I will answer pretty much any of them. I did get an auto grabber, which will be really great for the barn. I do have to do something goofy with it where I have to remove it the day before my goat is old enough to produce milk, because otherwise it will automatically milk it, and I won't be able to do the exploit where you animation cancel milking, but that'll come up later on probably. And we just have a little bit more organization. This chest is not organized. It's just random junk. It's supposed to be my community center donation tool chest, but it is like, it's just a bunch of random stuff. So I don't know what I'm doing. And it stays that way forever. So yeah, sorry. And we didn't make very much money because we just sold random junk. It was nothing in particular. And we have good luck today, which doesn't really matter because we are going to just be doing chores. This is our final harvest day, and we should reach farming 10, which means we'll be exactly where we have to be. We need to go to the traveling cart as well for a few items. We'll do the rest of the gifts, or not the rest of the gifts, I'm sorry, a new day of gifting. as we smelt all day, finish up those 2 special order requests, plant all of our parsnips, and do a little bit more organization and set aside a spring ingredient cook list. So I know that's a lot. In this particular day, it has a lot more footage than the other days because there is a lot to do, and there's a lot more to kind of talk about. I've covered some of it already, but we'll get a little further into it. The obvious thing is harvesting all the kale is the most important thing because we need that level 10 farming. And the cart, I guess, would be the second most important thing. On this cart, on this particular day, it has a nautilus shell, which we would otherwise have to RNG manipulate from Demetrius or wait until winter to get. And it also has a duck egg, which we need for the animal bundle to unlock the greenhouse faster. I also bought a cactus for this little gifting route we're doing. I don't know why I did that. It was cheap enough, I didn't feel like I was too worried about it. And we bought the rare seeds, which we'll need in the greenhouse for a star drop and just for money. We also had to chop some hardwood, which we've been doing most days in order to get the 80 hardwood we need for Robin's quest. I just don't really show it that often because it's not very interesting. And at this point we have enough hardwood for that quest, and so we'll knock that out today. And then we're selling a bit more iridium just so we have money to buy the starfruit seeds. And we'll buy those in the next couple of days. It's not actually that big of a rush. And then we'll gift some of the easier NPCs that have the lower hearts. And then we'll gift like the big groups, like we'll get Maru, Demetrius, and Robin while we turn in her quest. And so we try to do our gifting as efficiently as possible. And I think the last quest is that Pierre's Prime Produce, which we are going to give him a ton of Gold Star Kale. And that's it. What else? Silo. We need a silo. I forgot to put that in the notes, but the silo will make it a lot easier to manage our animals. We're just going to stick it wherever. It doesn't matter. But eventually we'll have a really big wheat crop. And at that time, we'll fill up our silos pretty good at the end of summertime. There's nothing like too pressing today, aside from like some of the stuff I outlined. The gifts, as usual, take up the most time, aside from harvesting and planting. And I wanted to mention, my harvesting and planting it's never the most efficient way to do it. I do not do it the most efficient way. I always harvest, and then I go back and plant seeds. What I should be doing is harvesting and planting simultaneously with a mouse and keyboard. But since I only have use of like one hand during a majority of the filming of this run, mouse and keyboard is not an option. I cannot use WASD. I have to use a control pad. So that is why most of my harvests and planting is inefficient. And I also like playing with a controller more, which I've probably mentioned a couple times now. And yeah, I just sold the rest of my stuff to Pierre. I should have shipped it, I guess, for the shipping credit, at least one of them. But I think I've already shipped a kale anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. If you want, you can also do potatoes for a similar experience. It's a little bit less, but potatoes are the same amount of time. You'll just have to do a slightly larger amount of potatoes to get farming 10 in spring. I just choose kale because I like harvesting it more. I like kale more in real life. And that's it. I don't know, it's better money overall. If you don't get... Well, it can be better money. Potatoes can be a lot better money if you like manipulate where you plant them. So, yeah. We also got the star drop from Krobus. I skipped the cutscene yesterday from the museum, which I didn't really mean to do, but I'm in such a habit of skipping them so fast. But I got the rusty key yesterday, so today we opened it up and got our first star drop and our first interaction with Krobus. We are also repositioning our crab pots onto the beach so we can eventually fish up a lobster, a crab, and a cockle, I think. Whatever the fish are, you get, well, not fish, but you know what I mean. Whatever the crustaceans and bivalves you get from the crab pots on the ocean for fishing credit. I'll need a lobster for a recipe, as well as that fishing checklist. And I think the rest of the day is mostly just planting parsnips. And that pretty much concludes our week, I guess. We'll go over our weekly goals again like we normally do, and we'll also revisit our spring goals to kind of check things off the list as we kind of sort out our cooking chest. And so we missed a couple things. We missed expanding our farm completely, and we missed our cash in hand goal by about 40k. And again, these are the two things that were like, or one of the things was not that big of a deal. Expanding the farm would have been really, really nice, but it's not the worst. We expanded a little bit, but not to the full like 38 additional sprinklers that I would have liked. And so like overall, I'm pretty happy with our current progress. Our cooking chest is like in a pretty good spot. I didn't go over it in too much depth because all it is just taking all the spring stuff that we needed and putting it in a chest. The spring stuff we needed for cooking. It's not too nuanced, you know, it's just, that's all it is. And as far as the spring goals go, we hit just about everything. We did not make the 1 million earned goal though. We actually fell short of that by around $250,000, which is a ton. I almost said a bad word, but it is a lot of money, and that's okay again. Like the money goals are loose goals, and I think we should still be able to do the run despite not making that money right now. It would have been a nicer safety net, but I think we're still in decent shape. And we're going to do a little bit of expansion, like I said. We only got around that far before we passed out, so not a lot, but a little bit. And we did hit level 10 farming, which I was most worried about. And so we got our agriculturalist, which puts us into a good position for our starfruit. And the rest of our run is still going to work out. So keep watching if you want to see how it goes. I hope it keeps going well like it has been. And I will see you around.